not one of those, but Sean Gallagher, number 3 on our leaderboard, chose to play some Delver and is looking like he might have some regrets in this moment as Ross Krueger, the lands player here at 3-0, going to kick things off with Exploration of Yavimaya into Sphere of Resistance off of the extra land drop from Ancient Tomb. And 4 permanents on turn 1. You would not think that this is a control deck. You would think you're about to get the doors blown off, but no, strap in. We are going to be here a while.
The thing is, if you sit down across from your opponent and they get out a turn 1 whiteboard at Exploration, you know they came to game. Like, this is not somebody who randomly borrowed the deck or something. This is somebody who knows what they're doing. And it looks like Ross is here to do exactly that. Like, turn 1 Sphere of Resistance off, like, the Exploration, negating all of the passive negative effects. Like, Symmetrical, never heard of it. This is quite
Symmetrical, something. Never heard of it. Well, in step, Sean actually does get to use his mana a little bit in a certain way, getting to fetch the Thundering Falls, the Surveil land from the Murders of Karlov Manor, something we've seen a ton of across every single match. In fact, I'm not sure we've seen a match without them so far this weekend, as he's going to get a Surveil on instep, going to get to do a little bit of card selection, even without having to be taxed by the Sphere of Resistance.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough one for Sean, but of course, in the end, a lot of is going to depend on what Ross is up to doing here. Ross already declining to play a second land, or rather fourth land in this case, on a second turn. That already tells you a little bit about what's going on. But
what a hand from Ross. I mean, you get a look here. This is a land's classic. 2 crop rotations and a Tabernacle. Just a land doesn't even tap for mana. There's so many weird lands.
Like, not scared of running out the Tabernacle, sitting on the crop rotation. You basically want Sean to use your Wasteland, right? But Sean, all the wiser, is just going to run out, Brainstorm there, trying to get a little bit more of... you know, Greg, when you're sitting in the Delver spot here, like, you know what you're supposed to do, but all of a sudden you know, oh, but actually I can't. Like, I'm probably going to get my first creature, like, on turn 3 or 4, if I'm lucky, and then I have to keep paying. Like, nothing really works when lands gets this kind of start, and that's part of the draw that people have to lands, I would very much think, because you know that, like, you're gonna get these completely busted openings. And very heads up play, by the way, from Ross. So as Sean taps out for the Brainstorm, Ross runs out the crop rotation, knowing that because of the Sphere of Resistance, there can't be Daze, there can't be Force of Will, so he's safe to make the token. And now at this point, it's basically over. There's nothing Sean can draw here.
From the Ancient Tomb, as well as tap the Tabernacle for mana thanks to Yavimaya Creative Growth. So as soon as Sean goes to use the Brainstorm, not wanting to run into crop rotation, actually with the Thespian stage already in play, Ross is able to just go ahead and grab Merit Lage, and with no answer in hand, no way to answer it underneath the Sphere of Resistance, that's going to do it. And lands, a deck known for being a slow control deck, is going to just blow the doors off this Izzet deck and very quickly win a game, then move to the sideboards. I feel that's not normally how this goes.
Exploration is addictive, dude. Exploration is an absolute addictive thing to do in Legacy, and I think that's part of the big draw to the deck. We already talked about the busted openings that it can have. And if Delver lets you get away with your openings and doesn't deploy quick threats, it's, at least in the first game where it doesn't have tools like Price of Progress or what have you, it's such an uphill battle, and this proved to be basically the Mount Everest of uphill battles, and we just couldn't get there. So it's going to be interesting what Sean is going to bring from the sideboard. Actually, let's see which deck we're going to see here first.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Izzet Delver first and see exactly what we have to improve. So I'm going to read off the sideboard here real quick. We got 3 Pyroblasts, 2 Hydroblasts, 2 copies of Force of Negation, 2 copies of Counterbalance, 2 Price of Progress, 2 Meltdown, 1 Soul Guide Lantern, and 1 Grafdigger's Cage. What are the adjustments we're making here?
Yeah, definitely 2 Price of Progress. Like, this is exactly the kind of matchup where the Price of Progress are there. It's probably the most common sideboard games win condition other than random beats. And those ones are going to come in. Now, Meltdown, usually they don't bring it in. Soul Guide Lantern, you could if you want to fight the fair game, but a lot of times you probably not. The thing is, like, you got your Unholy Heats to take out. You got your, how many Lightning Bolts? 4, of course. You got 5 cards you want to take out. And then, depending on what you bring in. So we bring in 2 Price of Progress, we bring in 2 Force of Negation, maybe. Actually, probably you also can take out the early Exploration. And then, I can't tell you whether we bring in the Counterbalances. I don't think so. Sometimes they did it to try and, like, continuously fight low, but I'm not a big fan of that, and I don't think that's what's going to happen. But 2 Force of Negations, 2 Price of Progress, and then maybe Soul Guide Lantern, maybe a Meltdown, and that's what I think Delver is going to do.
Well, some reasonable upgrades, about 8 cards worth considering. Let's have a look at the lands deck and the current kind of builds of those and take a look at what we want for the Delver matchup. So in the sideboard, we got 4 copies of Swords of Plowshares, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 copies of Choke, 2 Force of Vigor, 2 Torpor Orb, 1 Haywire Might, 1 Pithing Needle, and 1 Endurance. What adjustments are we making from the land side of things?
So we're going to bring in the Chokes. We're probably going to bring in the one of Endurance. And then probably this is also the matchup. It's actually, it's a little bit more grindy than Grixis, I want to say, but I think you still bring in so far Swords of Plowshares, but it's going to depend on what you take out. So Crucible of Worlds is like a makeshift extra loam in case they extract your loam. Maybe we're going to keep that, but I can see it going out. Other than that, there's not too, like, sometimes you take out some of your lands, like...
Do you like Reclaimers in this matchup? That's a card that I'm looking at. If you cut those, then any and all creature removal, like especially bolts that you might want to leave in just to go face, don't get any targets. Is that something ever worth considering, or Reclaimers just always good against Delver?
Delver doesn't really have too many things to really take out the Reclaimer, right? Once it's grown to 3/4. So sure. I think it's probably gonna stay in there also because like it creates these awkward incentives for the Delver player once they try to go after your lands. If you have an untapped Reclaimer, they don't really want to make that happen. Reclaimer also like enables all these lines. I would guess there's Flagstones of Choker in here, or maybe this one doesn't have them. Actually, I don't see them. Okay, so usually like when nothing happens on the board, you can go like Flagstones, track the Flagstones, and like pull ahead that way. Since we don't have them, we will see. I think they stay in. There's not too much we want to bring in, so maybe it's definitely the Chokes. And then Swords of Plowshares. It depends on which lands Ross decides to take out, if he wants to take out some of them.
Lush Portico. So both players actually reaching for the Surveil lands from Murders of Karlov Manor on end steps here. Sean, of course, on the play, able to deploy his Wasteland off his Thundering Falls on turn 2 and follow up with the Wasteland. Does not choose to Wasteland the Lush Portico. Oh my goodness. Why was that so difficult? Lush Portico, and is now choosing to do that on upkeep here and potentially trying to bait out any kind of crop rotation nonsense and then maybe get a Daze off. Goes for Swords to Plowshares and the Delver anyway, and then it's going to be Thespian stage pass. Back over to Sean Gallagher we go. No creatures left in play, just 1 land each. Very much a traditional kind of Delver start as here's Ponder.
Yeah, and every time like Sean doesn't deploy a creature or Wasteland, you're happy. The game kind of restarted, and basically on the restart, Sean doesn't have a turn 1 creature, which like from Ross' side of the board, that's perfect, right? You're sitting on 2 more copies of Swords to Plowshares, so you wouldn't mind if Sean had those. But right now, all you want is like a stable mana base and Sean slowly running out of creatures, because that's the game plan that your hand dictates. Would have loved to have a turn 1 exploration, of course, but you can't always get what you want.
You can't always get what you want, indeed. No second land for Sean Gallagher, maybe something worth considering. Here is Elvish Reclaimer, card clearly worth keeping in as we go back to Sean Gallagher, hoping to find another land. I think we had a Bauble we chose not to deploy. Here comes Lightning Bolt on, maybe didn't get a great look. A lot of cards in Sean Gallagher's hand, but yeah, Elvish Reclaimer gets bolted. Back over to Ross we go, who deploys Maze of Ith and just passing the turn back. So set up for the first few threats. I'm sure would love a Wasteland to pick off this Thundering Falls. Does not have one. And here is the Dragon's Rage Channeler and Mishra's Bauble. Gonna get a look at the top card of Ross's library.
Ross right now looking to find a white source. Also, by the way, in Sean's hand, we see a Price of Progress. So it's not really relevant right now. It's probably going to be something that's going to deploy a couple of turns from now. But already it's dealing potentially 8 points of damage.
Well, here's Dark Depths, and that can change how much damage it's going to do very quickly as both lands can go away. And he can actually make it right now thanks to the Yavimaya, allowing both Maze of Ith and Dark Depths to tap for mana. So we have the combo dialed up right now. No Wastelands to play for Sean Gallagher. And, you know, in the absence of something like Stifle, this is not counterable. We see Force of Will and Hand among the mix for Sean.
It's interesting that Ross didn't go for it on his turn, because now Sean has the possibility to run out of Wasteland and stop the combo. So that makes me think that Ross was maybe respecting something that Sean could do in the main phase, which really there isn't all that much. But we will see. We will see. He's probably like, you didn't come here to not make the token here, I would guess, unless he thinks the rest of his hand is powerful enough that he can afford to play around Stifle as hard as he can. Like usually it's not a 0-off. Sometimes it's a 2-off in these kinds of decks. Let's actually see how many. Yeah, there are no Stifles in this version, and I'm not surprised. So I think unless you want to play around Brazen Borrower, you just go for it. And now with Sean having tapped his mana for Delver, you just make the token here at end of turn. And put like Sean into what we call the Abyss mode. Right? You were saying?
No, I feel like that is probably the petty theft that we're playing around from Brazen Borrower, that we were playing around by not making it main phase, trying to see if Sean will tap some additional mana, and he did. Do you go for it here then?
You definitely go for it here, yeah.
Okay, well, Ross agrees, as here comes a 2020, and we'll see if Sean has any one-mana answers to that. The Delver, not yet flipped, can't block, and draw a card off of the Bauble. It's Volcanic Island. Here's an attack for 20, and thanks to Source of Plowshares, actually, Sean is higher than 20, so we are going to be able to take that hit, and then Choke is the follow-up? That one has to get Force of Willed.
You got Choke out there, you got Tabernacle out there. Dude, that's a win condition in its own.
Oh, I believe he's at 21. So this Force of Will actually put him to 0, and that's game. So we are done here. Sean Gallagher is going to lose this match. Ross, with his take on lands, going to win maybe the fastest match of lands I think I've ever seen. 2 games to 0 over number 3 on our leaderboard, Sean Gallagher. And Ross will advance to 4-0. What an absurd round of lands versus Delver.
Drake, on days like this, another Lance player is born. Somebody out there is going to be like, I want to be that. I want to make those plays. And then they're going to go online and buy a Tabernacle. And we're going to have another Lance. Dude, I've been to a tournament in Italy. I always remember that, like 200 plus players. We got the metagame report afterwards. Most played deck, Lance.
How do these people find Tabernacles? They're so expensive.
Italy, they love, I mean, Italian Tabernacles, I would guess. People in Italy, they love Lance. They're usually like that. They are known for being control players, but at that tournament in Rome, 200 people showed up. I want to say like 30 played Lance. Just like,
yeah. Well, Ross Krueger showed up today, played Lance, rewarded with an undefeated record. And we'll see. I believe that with that match ending so quickly, we might have some time to move to a backup. And we got another kind of classic matchup on our backup as well. Got the Death and Taxes deck in the hands of Nicole Dubin. This one, the new kind of variant, the Yorion Death and Taxes, versus, again, a Teamer Delver deck piloted by Justin Brickman. Has a lot of the same shape that we saw from Sean Gallagher in the previous round with the Questing Druid style setups. As here we are, and it looks like to be game number 1 for Nicole Dubin. Got the turn 1 Aether Vial, Force of Willed, pitching a Portent, and then the Caracas Wastelanded and Prismatic Vista, the follow-up for her. We'll see exactly what she wants to do. Now, this matchup has evolved a lot over the years. Julian, who do you generally like now in today's Death and Taxes versus Teamer Delver kind of setup?
This is so interesting when I look at this. This is actually a 3-color Death and Taxes list. This is like, we're going back to the roots. This is kind of like morphing into Maverick at this point. I think we're splashing green in the sideboard for Gadoktik at the very least. Overall, in Legacy, it's really hard not to consider the Delver deck to be favored. But Death and Taxes is known for being able to go toe-to-toe with Delver decks everywhere. Now, what Death and Taxes that you already mentioned, right? This is like the new version. This is the version splashing black, at least in the main deck, for Bowmasters and Thoughtseize. And I feel like this is what people are playing right now. You don't see a lot of Death and Taxes, but when you do see it, it's usually with that splash. And it's certainly going to help in that matchup. It's going to take out like early, like undeliriate ring rate channels and stuff. It's also going to make the extra card advantage engine a little bit more awkward. On the other hand, like the Druid doesn't really care about Bowmasters. So we'll see how it develops. I think overall, this usually leads to some really good, honest magic, and I'm all for that.
And good, honest magic, I think we're going to see is here we go. We got the Dragon Trade Chandler, Swords to Plowshares by Nicole Dubin. So that went to exile. And now a Thoughtseize coming down off of the fetched basic swamp from Prismatic Vista. So that's a Thoughtseize going to reveal a hand of Bolt, Questing Druid, Murktide Regent, and a basic island from Justin Brickman.
Yeah. I think Nicole is just going to sit tight here and eventually try to leverage the advantage that by getting Yorion. In the absence of pressure, and that's just like the biggest Achilles heel for any kind of Delver deck in the first game. If you got no pressure, you got nothing. Like your Dazes don't matter, your Wastelands don't matter, even your removal spells don't really matter all that much because eventually the bigger card quality will prevail. So from just inside of the board, you can try and hang a little bit by, leveraging your Druid, which wasn't discarded. But you want to make something happen, let's say, over the next 2 turns. If we're still sitting here 2 turns from now and Justin doesn't have a creature in play, that's a problem. And I think here we're going to get what's it called? Seek the Beast in response to Thalia.
Yeah, we
But
could.
let's
Yeah,
see.
I believe Seek the Beast actually is correct. Look at you having that one dialed up. I don't even know. Yeah, Seek the Beast indeed is the adventure mode of Questing Druid. Is an instant, of course, if we do want to go that angle. Now, I do believe Justin Brickman does still have a bolt if he wants to go that way instead. It is going to be Seek the Beast, though, in response. So maybe we can find a little bit easier answer to Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, as, of course, the Murktide Regent was discarded to Thoughtseize, left him with Bolt and the Druid. And we found Daze, so we can
Sweet.
Daze the Thalia. A little lean back from Nicole there certainly shows her a little bit of exasperation with that reveal. What a powerful reveal indeed.
Yeah, this is the kind of value you're looking to get when you Seek the Beast. Now, awkwardly for Justin, he probably wants to run out the Delver, the Ponder, just so it doesn't go to waste, even though you'd much rather play that with the creature here. But what can you do? You still can play the Druid later on, and it doesn't really matter all that much how big the Druid is in this matchup, but you'll take it. You'll take it eventually. But right now we are back to square one. Justin wants to make something happen, and he wants to have a creature. Nicole, by the way, did she not play a land here?
No, Nicole did not play her third land drop, so did miss a land there. And Justin, we know, does get to replay his land from Daze, and then it is actually Volcanic Island, so we can hold up Bolt for his consolation prize for casting Ponder instead of Questing Druid. So there's a little bit, maybe a little bit of value to doing that outside of just trying not to let the Ponder go, which Justin's doing quite a bit of thinking on this particular Ponder, has chosen to keep the cards and draw. And we'll see if he has a follow-up. It's the Volcanic Island, no creature, and it looks like back to Nicole we're gonna go. Yep, back to Nicole we go. We'll see what she can find. She has managed to establish 2 basics, so Wasteland proof for the moment, but again, lost her Karakas from Wasteland from turn 1 after getting the Aether Vial Force, and now kind of stuck on mana a little bit as here's Questing Druid coming into play. The riff on Quirion Dryad, I believe, even has the same initials.
So, since Nicole didn't Swords of Plowshares yet end step, we can probably conclude that she's sitting on a lot of 3-drops, like a lot of 3-drops. And Justin is probably not going to be happy to make that Druid really big and go to town as soon as possible, as long as like Nicole is struggling with her mana.
Well, indeed, here is another threat in the form of Dragon's Rage Channel. I believe this one is Delirious. I think we have the full traditional 4. Yeah, there we go. Justin separated things for us, and it's going to be Bowmasters in response to the Questing Druid triggers. This is actually huge.
Well, it depends. It depends. Like if Justin's got another instant here, let's say Brainstorm, I think he can, like, especially the Brainstorm, right, would be really good here. Even Daze.
Oh my God, it's another Daze. That one's so powerful when Nicole's stuck on lands like this, is going to grow the Questing Druid another point as well, which will then grow to a 3rd point. Thanks to this Dragon's Rage Channel. No Surveil, as that Dragon's Rage Channel was on the stack, and it's Murktide too. Justin has all the threats. And
remember when I said, like, 2 turns from now, Justin needs to put some creatures into play? Yeah, he was probably listening to the stream, and he figured, yeah, that sounds good. Julian, let's do it.
Yeah, Julian, you got it all dialed up. You're right. You're so right, King. Let's establish this. Now, it does shrink the Dragon's Rage Channel, I believe, no matter how you choose to slice this. So, growing the Murktide Regent, now the Dragon's Rage Channel a little bit more susceptible to Orcish Bowmasters, but having just dazed a copy of Orcish Bowmasters, it's not even guaranteed Nicole has that. And there's plenty of other problems in play right now beyond just this Dragon's Rage Channel, who's kind of the weakest card in play right now.
Yeah, this is rough. Basically, Nicole needs to draw like running Swords of Plowshares. Because even getting to 3, that's just like probably not going to do it. I think that's just too slow. I mean, obviously you go for it because it looks like we ripped that one from the... Actually, we might not have ripped one from the top. We were holding Bowmasters. But is that the formal wear?
Formal wear, okay. Yeah. We have it up on screen. Another new addition. We've seen quite a few Fallout cards kind of making their debut in Legacy paper coverage here with pre-war formal wear. This one is an equipment that can be found with Stoneforge Mystic, as you see here. Costs 2 and a white, enters the battlefield, returns a creature with mana value 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield, and attaches itself to that creature. And then, of course, a creature gets +2/+2 and vigilance with an equip cost of 3. So that can bring the Bowmasters that was countered, or the Thalia, back into play and grow it up quite a bit, whatever direction Nicole wants to do, assuming she lives through this turn, which is certainly not a guarantee, as here comes Brainstorm, as we pass back. Still no 3rd land for Nicole Dubin, as Justin Brickman's going to Brainstorming, growing the Questing Druid. It may just be that the Stoneforge Mystic might be on blocking duty here.
Yeah, you might even have to already down to 12 life. Delirium already enabled by the instant there. And even the pre-war formal wear, right? We're not even making any kind of reasonable jump blockers at this point. You know what Nicole needs? Nicole needs a Brainstorm and needs to draw all sorts of plowshares. Not gonna happen, I
Well,
guess.
the bulk clearing things out the way, I think we might just be done. Yeah, here's a Ponder as well. This Questing Druid up to 7, plus 10, plus the Murktide. I think Questing Druid and Murktide alone are lethal, so Nicole would have to have something like a Solitude to really break up lethal right now. We'll see if she does.
I mean, there's a chance, right? Because Nicole is playing 4 copies of Solitude, but no, not happening. And off to game 2. Like, this game was heavily dominated by Nicole, unfortunately not being able to find a third land to fully unlock the power of the Death and Taxes deck.
Yeah, I mean, she had that early Caracas into Aether Vial. If Aether Vial resolved her mana problems, are solved for most of the game. Justin Brickman having the Force of Will dialed up into the Wasteland was so backbreaking for Nicole's mana development, was never really able to recover from there. So with that, let's actually have a look at Nicole's deck list and sideboard. Now, of course, this is an 80-card deck, so I believe it will fall off the screen a little bit, but I think it's just 4 lands off the bottom. You can still read the names, so whatever. Big deck problems. Let's have a look at the sideboard. We got 4 copies of Leyline of the Void, 3 copies of Cabal Therapy, 2 Gaddock Teague, 2 The Battle of Bywater, 1 Lauren of the Third Path, 1 Containment Priest, 1 Rest in Peace, and of course the Yorion Sky Nomad that is the companion for the deck. What kind of adjustments are we making for this Teamer Delver setup?
Dude, the Battle of Bywater, that's exactly the kind of card I want against Delver. Like, every day, every night, everywhere. This is definitely going to be one of the biggest game changers if we can ever. Like, imagine on a board like this, you resolve this, all of a sudden everything turns around. So that one's going to come in. Rest in Peace is going to come in. And then I really can't tell you whether you bring in Leyline of the Void. It's basically a discussion for the last 5 years. Do you bring these in against the Murktide decks and DRC decks or not? I think this deck, the Teemo Delver deck, are a little less susceptible to basically Leyline of the Void. And also, Nicole not, like, definitely on less of a chance of opening the Leyline in the first place, but then, of course, on the upside, also less of a chance of drawing into it later on. So I can't tell you whether she's going to bring it in. These Death and Taxes players, especially the very enfranchised ones, they usually like stick together and work it out what's the best way to do it. So I'm going to be very confident that whichever way Nicole goes about it, that's probably like the way they are supposed to do it. But very easily, Battle of Bywater, Rest in Peace gonna come in, and then we're probably gonna take out like Scarab Swarm, maybe. Like, I always see this card doing completely broken things against the control decks. Against the Delver decks, even though this is a little bit of a slower Delver deck, maybe.
It's a lot of blockers.
It's a lot of blockers if it ever goes off, but a lot of times you also won't be able to make it happen. So I can tell you, I'm super excited to see it in action. Maybe the Thought Seizes. Like, the Thought Seizes don't strike me as too exciting.
I can see that. And Nicole definitely will make, I believe, the decision that makes the most sense for her and her game plan. But some reasonable ends, some good options for her. Let's have a look over at Justin Brickman and his take on the Teamer Delver deck. We got 3 Price of Progress, 3 Pyroblast, 2 Force of Negation, 2 Meltdown, a Counterbalance, Grafdigger's Cage, a Hydroblast, a Soul Guide Lantern, and a Brazen Borrower. What are we doing here?
We're probably going to look at the main deck first, because none of those cards jump out at me as being like, oh yes, I want that in the matchup. So at that point, you look at the main deck and you're trying to figure out, okay, is there anything I don't want that I can upgrade? And like, something that sticks out to me is Counterbalance. Not the most exciting card for the matchup, a little bit harder to make work, especially in the face of like Etherwile and also like various mana costs. So maybe that one's going to come out, and then we could bring maybe Meltdown. Maybe, Brazen Borrower is always something to break up the tempo, and that's something that's sometimes your main win condition. Other than that, I know some Delver players like taking out Dazes on the draw. I sometimes do it. I'm not too big a fan of it. I often don't, so not seeing that happening. I also don't see anything in the sideboard that's better than Daze for sure. So I don't think there's going to be much sideboarding happening on Justin's side here.
Yeah, I also, when I played Delver a lot, against Death and Taxes, again, in a classic Magic and Legacy, I did trim on some Forces and some Dazes for some stuff. And I did play around with the numbers a lot. You never really, I think, want to cut out all of it, but trimming down a little bit sometimes makes some sense. Force much better now than it was before, especially for tagging Aether Vials and things of that nature. And Brazen Borrower may be worth grabbing for the ley lines and stuff. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Counterbalance is the easy cut. Beyond there, it gets a little bit harder, but a lot more modest changes, I'd say, than the kind of changes that Nicole Dubin is going to have access to. So some reasonable adjustments to make. Nicole Dubin may be improving a little bit more than Justin Brickman in the sideboard games. And certainly she's going to need to, being down a game already in this match, as these players get shuffled up for game number 2, where Nicole Dubin will be on the play. Nicole Dubin, of course, someone that was present in our 2023 NRG Championship, number 42 on our leaderboard right now. A little bit slower start on the leaderboard, but plenty more events left to play. It was actually her birthday yesterday, so happy birthday to her, and hopefully,
Hey, happy birthday.
Yeah, she continues to win here on the day after her birthday to make it a nice little birthday weekend.
Okay, Nicole disagreeing with me. Nicole saying, no, at least on the play, I definitely want my Thought Seizures and finding the very best spot in the entire game for a turn 1 of a basic land. Looks like at least one Meltdown came in. Do you take the Brainstorm here? I often dislike taking cards that don't really do something, as in like interacting with the board, but here it's by far the best card, right? I mean, it's definitely going to be heavily dictated by what Nicole has in hand, and maybe we can deduce something by what she takes here.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think when you're talking about looking at hands like this with a lot of red removal spells, you kind of need to decide, we're looking at the Canoptic Swarm and there's a Thalian among the bunch. You really want to decide, okay, if I take a removal spell now, that's one less creature that doesn't die later on. So that's something worth considering. And if I have an Orcish Bowmasters in hand, taking the Brainstorm certainly seems a little less appealing, but I didn't see a Bowmasters in hand, and I didn't really also see Nicole's hand being that susceptible to just a pile of removal spells. So yeah, going to agree with you. Take the Brainstorm as the by far most powerful card in Justin Brickman's hand and leave him with just some red cards and some lands as we pass back to Justin Brickman. Able to fetch a basic on turn 1 is Nicole.
So this reminds me of something like that Thomas Innerwaldsen told me. A lot of people might know him as like the godfather of Death and Taxes. And that is, when he played against a deck that had True Nemesis, like goes way back, like Patriot Java, he eventually ended up siding out his own Swords to Plowshares because he said, you know what, that deck actually kind of wants to trade 1-for-1 all the time and then eventually get down to True Nemesis that I can't interact with and then win the game that way. I feel like kind of like the reverse thing happening is going on in this game. Like, Nicole would actually be happy to just like randomly 1-for-1 trade against Justin's removal spells, knowing that her deck has a lot of card advantage in it. Eventually one of your creatures is gonna stick, and even stuff like, Stoneforge Mystic, even if you remove it, it still produces some kind of value. So leaving Justin with just the removal spells and lands, strategically, you already know, okay, this could be that kind of game, right? I just run out creatures, Justin destroys it, we all go down to like a very low life total, a very low number of cards in hand, and then my superior card quality is going to take the game. And we will see. I have no idea what that kind of artwork is. Drake, you will have to tell me.
I will have to tell you. It looks like...
Rest in peace.
Yeah, that looks like a Rest in Peace. It's one of the new old border cards, so it has to be from the Ravnica Remastered. So that's, it looks like it's going to be a Rest in Peace, and it's going to annihilate the graveyards after a little exchange where Thalia did bite the Unholy Heat from Justin Brickman, and it's Counterbalance, a card that we call out as, I don't think it's that good, you didn't think it's that good. Well, Justin disagrees. This card, apparently the converted mana costs on the Death and Taxes deck as it exists today maybe have converged to such a point where you have enough things to counter it. So look at the uncommon from Cold Snap. This one, a card I've played quite a bit in the old Miracles decks. Whenever opponent plays a spell, it can reveal the top card of your library. If you do, counter that spell if it has the same converted mana cost. A lot of tricks you can do with the fetch lands and brainstorms. And against Death and Taxes, though, interesting.
You used to play like Miracles with Counterbalance?
Oh yeah, top Counterbalance, talk to me.
They let you commentate these tournaments from prison?
Look, Joe Lucette was once in the booth with me, man. It was all Sensei's Dividing Talk all the time.
Rightfully so, right? Dude, watch us like talk about like how Counterbalance is not good. Watch us talk about how Counterbalance is not good in the matchup, only for it to maybe like completely take over the game.
Oh yeah, watch. We're about to just look so foolish. As here comes the Counterbalance trigger on Flicker Wisp. We're gonna flip. It's Delver of Secrets. That one's not gonna counter Flicker Wisp. Shadowy Backstreet, notably fetched on end step for Nicole Dubin. As we got that handled. We're gonna flick the shadowy. We're gonna flicker with the Flicker Wisp, the Shadowy Backstreet. Get another Surveil. Nicole chooses to leave on top. So a little bit of card selection happening here. The Death and Taxes deck, and there's Wasteland on the Shadowy Backstreet. Gonna hit the Exile Zone. And Delver of Secrets, the card that was on top, revealed from Counterbalance, going to be the follow-up.
And taking off the
too. Nothing for you, Nicole. All of it in the graveyard. Get it all out of here.
And Nicole's probably like feeling pretty good about all of this that's happening. Of course, the worst case scenario would be like she left something on top that's not a land and doesn't have an extra land, like basically kind of like a repeat of the first game. We see Smother of Runes in hand. We see another Thoughtseize. I like there's a Meltdown that we already know probably won't do anything.
Okay, so we revealed for Counterbalance for Thoughtseize, and it was a land. That's going to eat the Meltdown that Nicole knew about from the turn 1 Thoughtseize. So really the last turn for Thoughtseize to be good, and it was. And the follow-up here is going to be Mother of Runes, and with no remove spell on sight, this Counterbalance flip actually kind of needs to be a 1 here. This Mother of Runes can start to be a real problem.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be annoying. One of the best ways to beat the Rest in Peace here is to, of course, flip the Delver and then just like go to town with it. As Nicole is sitting on, ideally from just inside, like just a bunch of cute cards that you won't be able to cast. But that's already asking for a lot, right? We will see.
Yeah, I don't think Nicole has very many cards left in hand from this point, if any. I can't get a great look from where I'm at. But, I mean, Mother of Runes does make it, the removal spells in the future, hard to answer. Now, Delver does have a lot of 1-drops. And if it's a 1-drop spell, then we're cooking. We get to counter Mother of Runes. We get to flip Delver Secrets. It's everything. And it's Portent! Oh my goodness, and Nicole leans back. That is brutal. Counterbalance looking incredible. Us, egg on our face. Counterbalance looking awesome. Delver,
oh my God,
Portent in hand. Everybody is foolish except Justin Brickman as he casts his Portent. An incredibly important card to have.
Portent is great in so many ways. Not only does it counter the Mother of Runes, it also flips the Delver and sets up a potential 1 or 2 on top for the next turn. So if Justin wants to protect his Delver from removal, he can like put a 1 on top. He could also put a 2 on top if he thinks there's going to be like a Stoneforge Mystic. And like, Drake, I'm going to put you in a spot. If you had a 1 and 2 on top, which one do you float here?
I think the ones, because Swords to Plowshares, Aether Vial, like all those cards are actually pretty scary from this spot. Where you end up where Nicole maybe can get out of it. Now the 2s can be scary. Things like Stoneforge Mystic and what have you are really slow. So I would probably put 1 on top. But honestly, if I'm casting that Portent, I kind of probably would have targeted my opponent. I'm just looking for a moment to do that. Just see. Like I want to look for myself, and then I'll draw a
hidden
card,
answer number C.
yeah. I like a C, answer C. I want to target my opponent, but that's probably wrong. Justin Brickman's almost certainly right. When you have counterbalance in play, you should be targeting yourself. But I'm just an addict. I really want to just target my opponent and Fate Seal them and do all that stuff. I'm telling you, it's that miracles intuition showing. I just want to look at my opponent's deck and make sure I'm not drawing anything good.
And it
Speaking
looks like
drawing anything good, I think that's Dragon's Rage Channeler, Force of Will, and maybe even another threat off this ponder.
You know what Nicole needs? A 3rd land and a Battle of Bywater. There's just like no way around it. That card is so
you're talking.
Good.
I mean, Battle of Bywater would be awesome here. Hard to counter.
Delver flips, right?
Correct.
So we're going to take a 3 here, and then we probably want to find something, and then Battle of Bywater Justin out. I wonder, is Justin going to play around the Battle of Bywater by like not playing another creature? I don't think so. But on the other hand, he also doesn't need to play another creature.
Does he even know about the Battle of Bywater? This is an open deck list. I mean, he might just not even know. That's a kind of card I think that what I would have on my radar. But now, of course, Justin Brickman, much more proficient with the current state of Legacy than I am, and he's going to deploy the Dragon's Rage Channeler. Yeah, I just want to get the game over with. And, Battle by Water happens, it happens. Look, Nicole has an 80-card deck. She's never going to draw it. She's not going to draw it.
On the other hand, also, like, the Dragon Channel wouldn't die to Battle of Bywater anyway, since it's basically being relegated to be on a 1-1 all the time. So that makes a lot of sense to run that one out. And with Nicole exactly at 7 points of damage, potentially 7 points of damage, assuming that Eva is going to flip on the other side of the board, Nicole needs to, like, double spell here, probably. Like, she needs to take out 2 things, and that's going to be pretty rough.
Yeah, and this counterbalance already earning its stripes, able to counter a Mother of Runes in a very important spot. And we'll see if it can get a little bit of better values. Here comes Lion's Sash. Now, Justin Brickman does know what's on top. And if it is a 2, I'm sure he will reveal it. It's not a 2. He shrugs, says, sure, extra graveyard hate under Rest in Peace. Don't care. It's Lightning Bolt. And that's enough. Nicole Dubin is going to offer the fist bump. And Justin Brickman going to win 2-0 over Nicole Dubin and her take on Death and Taxes. A little bit more work to do. Not out of it yet, but I mean, a convincing victory for Justin Brickman and his Teamer Delver deck, and Counterbalance looking pretty good.
I miss playing Delver. Dude, I miss playing Delver so much. I haven't played a lot of Delver in the last couple of years. I used to play it a ton. And whenever I see like a Rock Delver deck, like Teemo Delver versions, that's just like, that's my jam. I want to get back into that.
This is what happens when you get old people like us in the booth. You just reminisce. You see, I'm serious because I'm sitting there like, I miss the days of Death Right Shaman. I've got my cane out. I'm yelling at the clouds. I'm like, I just want to Gitaxian Probe Cabal Therapy people and Trinity Nemesis and all that good stuff. And there's just none of those cards even anymore. We got better stuff to be doing.
Like, who are you to talk? Like, you're like, what, 20 something still?
I'm 28, I think.
See?
28.
28. See,
That's like 50 in esports years.
Okay. Add 10 more years to your. Like my colleague at work the other day, she was like, "Oh, I'm turning 30 like soon." I'm like, "Yeah, good luck. I'm turning 40 in 1.5 years." But yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for round number 4. That was, of course, our backup match. So we got to see a little bit of extra legacy action. We got to see lands blow the doors off of Delver Deck. And then we get to see Delver Deck emerge victorious, blowing the doors off of Death and Taxes. Some convincing victories that round on both sides. And that is going to conclude round number 4 of our 5K Legacy Trial here at the NRG series. Now, remember, we are halfway through Swiss at this point. We have 4 more rounds, and Julie and I will be in the booth for the final round of our shift here in the coverage booth next round, and then we will be passing things off. Do not go anywhere. Thank you for following. And if I remember correctly, Norm has informed me about a like a follower subscriber goal. I want to touch on that briefly. Julie, take me away on that.
Okay, so here's the thing. I don't know how it came to be, but you have the power to change the color of the hair of Norm. So last time we checked, we needed 200 more followers and 7 more subscribers. I think that number should be even lower right now. So if you want to see Norm with, I believe, orange hair for the next event, you have the power. Not only can you sub, get emotes, like support everything you see here, including us, you can also change the color of the hair of the guy who makes all of this happen. Like, you have that power, but only for a limited time. Like, I think for this event, the bet is on. So 200 more followers.
He's going to show up to with it, right?
Yeah. You want to make it happen.
Please, if you want to support us, if you want to support Norm having orange hair, if you want to support paper coverage, please follow and make sure to subscribe. If you want to remove ads and give us a little bit of extra support, and of course, as always, improve your viewing experience, whether it's the stream or Norm's hair. Like I said, that'll do it for round number 4. We will have round number 5 coming at you very shortly as these players start to battle it out and start looking at their top 8 perspectives. We will be bringing you that very shortly. Do not go anywhere.